Greetings to all of you, my dear sisters and brothers and my dear friends. A warm welcome to all of you from your pastor, Yeti. Today, in Be Encouraged in the study of 2 Corinthians, we are on part 2. I told you yesterday that it is split up in 4 parts. So it is the grace of given, part 2. When we give by faith, chapter 8, verses 13 to 24. Paul did not suggest that the rich become poor so that the poor might become rich. It would be unwise for a Christian to go into debt in order to relieve somebody else's debt, unless, of course, he was able to handle the responsibility of paying the debt back. Paul saw an equality in the whole procedure. The Gentiles were enriched spiritual by the Jews, so the Jews should be enriched material by the Gentiles. Furthermore, the Gentiles churches at that time were enjoying some measure of material wealth, while the believers in Judea were suffering. That situation could one day be reversed. There might come a time when the Jewish believers would be assisting the Gentiles. Who does the equalizing? God does. Paul used the miracle of the manna as an illustration of the principle. Exodus 16, verse 18. And no matter how much manna the Jews gathered each day, they always had what they needed. Those who tried to hoard the manna discovered that it was impossible because the manna would decay and smell. The lesson is clear. Gather what you need, share what you can, and don't try to hoard God's blessings. God will see to it that you will not be in need if you trust Him and obey His word. Our motive for giving is God's spiritual blessing in our lives. But our measure for giving is God's material blessing. Paul made this clear when he wrote to the Corinthians in his first letter. Let every one of you lay by him in store, as God had prospered him. Paul did not lay down any mathematical formula, because grace giving is not limited by a tithe, a 10%. Grace giving is systematic, but it is not legalistic. It is not satisfied with only the minimum, whatever that minimum might be. Since it is God who does the balancing of books, we cannot accuse Paul of teaching some form of communism. In fact, in 2 Corinthians 8:13 is a direct statement against communism or communism. The so-called communism of the early church has no relationship to the communistic political and economic systems that are promoted today. The early Christians, like many Christians today, voluntarily shared what they had, but did not force people to participate. The entire program was temporary, and the fact that Paul had to take up a special collection to relieve their needs is proof that the program was never meant to be imitated by later generations of Christians. Grace giving is a matter of faith. We obey God and believe that He will meet our needs as we help to meet the needs of others. As the Jews gathered the manna each day, so we must depend on God to give us this day our daily bread. We must not waste or squander what God gives us. Neither must we hoard it. In the will of God, it is right to save. The Jews saved Friday's manna to eat it on the Sabbath, and the manna did not decay. But out God's will, the wealth that we hoard will harm us rather than help us. Beginning in 2 Corinthians 8:16, Paul suddenly turned from a profound spiritual principle to some practical counsel on how the special collection would be handled. While it is true that grace giving means giving by faith, it is also true that grace giving does not mean giving by chance. The Christian who shares with others must be sure that what he gives is managed honestly and faithfully. Grace giving is not foolish giving. Even in a local church, the people who handle the funds must possess certain qualifications. Paul was very careful how he handled money entrusted to him, because he did not want to get a reputation of being a religious thief. The churches that contribute to the collection choose certain representatives to travel with Paul, so that everything would be done honestly, decently, and in order. He noted in one of our the men and women in every Christian ministry, a local church, a missionary organization, an evangelistic meeting, should possess the following qualifications if they are to handle God's money. Start with the first one. A God-given desire to serve. And you find it still in the same chapter 8, 16, and 17. Paul did not draft Titus. The young man had a desire in his heart to assist in the gathering of the special offering. Too often in local churches, men and women are put on the finances committee who do not have a sincere desire to serve God in this way. Above all else, a person who handles the Lord's money must have a heart that is right with God. Another one, a burden for lost souls, verse 18. We do not know who this brother was, but we thank God he had a testimony that he shared the gospel. Perhaps he was an evangelist. At least he was known to the churches as a man burdened for souls. Local churches nominated committees put the good soul winners on the evangelism committee or on the missions committee, which is fine. But some of them also ought to be on the finance committee or the board of trustees. Why? To keep the priorities straight. Another one, a desire to honor God, verse 19. Too often, financial reports glorify the church or a group of special donors and do not glorify God. There is no such thing in the church as secular and sacred business and ministry. All that we do is sacred business and ministries for the Lord. When the church constitutes says that the deacons or elders or whatever who are the ones who are in charge for that handle the spiritual affairs of the church, and the trustees handle the material and finances affairs. It is making an unbiblical distinction. The most spiritual thing a church can do is use its money wisely for spiritual ministry. We glorify God by using what He gives us the way He wants it to be used. If the people who manage church finances are not burdened to glorify God, they will soon be using those funds in ways that dishonor God. Another one, a reputation for honesty. Verse 20 and 22. Paul made it clear that he welcomed the representatives from the cooperating churches. He wanted to avoid any blame. It is not enough to say, well, the Lord sees what we're doing. We should make certain that man can see what we are doing. Note the emphasis in 2 Corinthians 8:22 on diligence. If there is one quality that is needed when handling finances, it is diligence. Another one, a cooperative spirit, 23 and 24. Titus not only had a heart for ministry, but he also knew how to be a good team member. Paul called him his partner and fellow helper. Titus was not like the committee member I heard about who said at the first meeting, "As long as I am on this committee, there will be no anonymous votes. Finances committee members do not own the money. It belongs to the Lord. The committee is but a steward, managing the money honestly and carefully for the service of the Lord." Note too that Paul saw the committee as special servants of the churches. The raising of this special relief fund was a cooperative effort of the Gentile churches, and Paul and the representatives were but messengers of the churches. The Greek word is apostolos, from which we get apostle, one sent with a special commission. This dedicated Christians felt an obligation to the churches to do their work honestly and successfully. Grace given is an exciting adventure when you learn to give by grace through faith just the way you were saved. You start to experience a wonderful liberation from things and from circumstances instead of things possessing you. You start to control them. You develop a new set of value and priorities. You no longer measure life or other people on the basis of money or possessions. If money is the best test of success, then Jesus was a failure because he was a poor man. Grace giving enriches you as you enrich others. Grace giving makes you more like Christ. Have you discovered the thrill of grace giving? And I will give you for this part 2 already the questions. Tomorrow we start on part 3. What motivates you to give money? What motivates you not to give? How was grace evident in the Macedonians' generous giving? Why do you think the Macedonians were so eager to give? What does it mean to give ourselves to God? In what ways did Jesus become poor? In what ways has he made us rich? What does it mean by a heart gift in contrast to a hand gift? How is that distinction helpful? What role, if any, should the tithe principle have in our giving commitments? What qualification should a person have if he or she handled money given to God's work? What benefits do believers receive when they practice grace given? And the last one, what have you learned from this chapter that encouraged you to give? So tomorrow the grace of giving will be part 3. So, whoops, that was a bunch of talking about money, if I may say so. But it's not only about the finances. It's about the whole given, grace of giving. So my dear ones, may you be encouraged by this study of grace, the grace of giving. We have all to go through a process that sometimes makes it a difficult decision what to do, because we see so many things that goes wrong in using the money. Sometimes we see also that churches don't do well with the money. So let us be having a heart of prayer that leaders and people who are appointed to work for the finances will be coming to the right, that everything, what it needs for, will be giving upright to the Lord, because everything belongs. Blessings to all of you, my dear ones. This is your Pastor Yeti. So I will hear, we start tomorrow on the grace of giving in part 3. And remember, my dear ones, even if we hear things that it's not easy to listen to, remember, don't rush. Take time to consider. Sit down and consider. That's always a wise step to start with. And then, lay your plans on the table or your schedule before God and ask the Holy Spirit to fill it in. I love you guys. Bye.